Hello and welcome to South Asia Chat, a podcast series brought to you by the Institute of South Asian Studies at the National University of Singapore. I'm your host, Nithya Subramanian, an editor at the Institute. Recently, a new political party, the National Democratic Movement, was formed in Pakistan under the Pashtun leader Mohsin Dawar. The announcement was made in Peshawar, with the new outfit seeking to promote democracy while resisting growing militarization of the country. This development becomes interesting as its launch comes soon after the Taliban took over Kabul. To tell us more, we have with us Dr. Iqbal Singh Sevea, a visiting research associate professor at ISAS. He is also associate professor of history at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and his research focuses on modern Islam and modern South Asia. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Iqbal.
Always a pleasure, Nithya.
The NDM party in Pakistan was launched recently by a group of leaders, including Mohsin Dawar, who belonged to the Pashtun Tahaffuz movement, or the PTM. Could you please share a little background on this development, and have these leaders actually broken away from the PTM as some reports suggest?
Okay, to sort of understand the emergence of the NDM, we should actually start with a little bit of an intro to the PTM itself. The PTM, or the Pashtun Tahaffuz movement, or the Pashtun Protection Movement, emerged in 2018 as a civil society movement, mass-based civil society movement, which opposed both the Taliban Pakistan militants, as well as the Pakistani military's operations in areas that were previously under the administrative rubric of Fatah. And these were primarily South Waziristan and North Waziristan. This movement, PTM, the catalyst for the emergence of this movement was the disappearance of a number of Pashtuns from these regions. There was one particular incident in 2018 in which a Pashtun shopkeeper, an aspiring model from Karachi, disappeared. His name was Naqibullah Mahsood. And this served as a catalyst for figures like Mohsin Dawar, Manzoor Pasteen, who are two of the leading figures of the PTM movement. And they launched a number of rallies, dharnas. They took to social media to highlight the what they would describe as the plight of the Pashtuns. And this really culminated in a long march from Dera Ismail Khan to Islamabad that took about 10 days, and a dharna, or a sit-in Peshawar, in which there were 60,000 people. I'm highlighting this primarily so you get a sense of the number of people who are involved with the PTM protest itself. And as I mentioned earlier, Mohsin Dawar and Manzoor Pasteen were leading figures of this movement. This movement raised the issues of Pashtun rights, but it also linked itself to a wider struggle of what they described as a wider struggle of the Pashtuns in the state of Pakistan, and this they linked to issues of federalism. While Manzoor Pasteen has been very firm in ensuring that the PTM movement, while of course being political, does not partake in institutional politics or the electoral realm, Mohsin Dawar on his part has been not only very vocal about the need for them to partake in electoral politics, but has also been a participant in electoral politics. In fact, he is an elected member of the Pakistani National Assembly. He stood as an independent candidate. And I'm very happy to talk more about his views, etc., if you would like me to go into details about that. But in terms of the emergence of the NDM itself, there's always been an understanding within the PTM movement that if figures like Mohsin Dawar would want to stand for elections, they can be a part of the PTM movement, but they will not be a part of the core committee of the PTM movement. So that has been a sort of arrangement that's been in place thus far. And Mohsin Dawar is not the only PTM member who's actually took part in electoral politics. There's another very influential figure, Ali Wazir, who's also stood as an independent. But as it happens, in the past few weeks, Mohsin Dawar has felt the need to establish his own party, the NDM. And this party, as he describes it, stands for demands for greater democracy, federalism, opposes the military action in parts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. But it also speaks in terms not just of Pashtuns, but also of other ethnic groups and their rights in Pakistan as well. And this party is now, it's been announced, as you mentioned earlier, fairly recently. In fact, it was announced on the 1st of September. And at the moment, the structure of the party is being established. It is said that they would establish local units at the provincial level, at district level, and they would have direct elections for candidates of the party itself. So a democratization of the party structure itself. What's worth noting at this stage about the party is that it's been successful in drawing not only people from the PTM movement, but also people associated with other political movements in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And these include figures like Bushra Gohar, Afrasib Khatak, who are leading figures who've been challenging the state and demanding for Pashtun rights as well. To address the issue of the relationship between Mohsin Dawar and Manzoor Pashtun, there are a number of rumors that are circulating around. Neither of the figures has actually attacked each other or said anything against each other publicly thus far. But there has clearly been an issue, and I'm keeping an eye on that. But what Mohsin Dawar on his part has said is that he will continue to be part of the PTM as a movement, and he would continue to champion their cause.
You have rightly set the tone to my next question, which was about the NDM and the PTM. So, you said that Mohsin Dawar has political ambitions, and he also contested, and he's an elected independent candidate. But the PTM itself has never positioned itself as a political party, but a civil rights group. And this new development has led to concerns about the future of the PTM and the Pashtun movement itself. We have, of course, seen in the past that the PTM has attracted huge crowds at its rallies. So what are your views? Do you think the NDM would anyway dent the cause or the position of PTM? Or would they be synergistic, by being different, yet they will be synergistic?
Interesting question, and interesting speculations are already ongoing on this issue. There have been some conspiracy theories suggesting that this is an attempt by the establishment in Pakistan to split the PTM movement itself. But at the same time, there are also concerns that the emergence of yet another Pashtun political party, and I would say party with regards to the NDM, you could actually see the re-emergence or the consolidation of support for Pashtun ethno-nationalism. So which is worth keeping an eye on both of these issues itself. But what is clear at this point is that the NDM has attracted figures from the PTM. I mentioned Bushra Gohar a moment ago. What we also know is that both the PTM and the NDM are speaking in terms of the same goals, be it federalism, be it the rights of various ethnic groups, be it greater democracy. But they also will both appeal to the same base. And this is primarily a younger demographic, which is both male and female. But it is also a base that is not as attached to, for want of a better term, the elders or tribal leaders in those regions. And I'm comfortable using the word tribal, but that's the term that's often used to describe them. Or the Maliks, who've often had a great say in politics of the region itself. We're stepping into a realm of speculation, but there will, of course, be moments at which the NDM and the PTM will have to make their own agreements and compromises among themselves, but also with other political parties. So keep a watch on that. But if I may suggest something that's the impact of the NDM that is clearer to me as an observer, it is that the NDM will pose a challenge to other Pashtun movements in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And these include parties like the Awami National Party, which is an established party grounded in Pashtun nationalism. It was established by the great Abdul Ghaffar Khan's son, Wali Khan. And it also speaks in terms of greater federalism, rights for the Pashtuns, etc. And what we will see in the coming days is the NDM will eat into the voter base of the Awami National Party, because the Awami National Party was in power in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa from 2008 to 2013, but it lost out to Imran Khan's PTI party, and currently only has about 12 seats in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Assembly. So its base is diluted, and I believe will be diluted further with the rise of the NDM. And I do think the NDM will emerge as an important player. That doesn't mean that they would win a huge number of seats, but they would be influential players. I would also say that we should pay attention to the regions of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province that were previously part of Fatah. And here, I think is where we will see a real perhaps I wouldn't say clash, but a coming a challenge between the PTM and the NDM. These are regions that have voted for the first time in 2019, and these are regions that have been merged into the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. But there are signs of restiveness within this region about being marginalized within this wider province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So I think the NDM is going to make a mark there.
The NDM's agenda has spoken about federal democracy, providing opportunities to all, curbing the role of military, etc. And so far, we haven't seen much reaction from the Pakistani administration or any of the other political parties. What are your thoughts on that? Are they still waiting to see how this will unfold?
I think there are a couple of ways to approach this. First, if we look at the state itself, or the state and the military, what we describe as the establishment in Pakistan, I believe their policy would be more of the same. The attempt to use the military, but also the attempt to actually provide patronage to certain groups in these regions to kind of have some influence. But the thing to note is that thus far, the NDM is a new party. It is in the stages of establishing itself, its presence. It will take time for this party to be perceived as some form of a threat to other political parties themselves. What is interesting is Mohsin Dawar's own position, how he can be appropriated or allied with other parties. Of course, the Pakistani establishment would welcome fissures within the PTM itself. But having said that, the PTI is in power in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and is in power comfortably, to put it. If you look at the numbers that they have in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Assembly. With regards to other political parties, Mohsin Dawar has, in the past, supported the PDM, or the a kind of umbrella organization of opposition political parties in Pakistan that are aligned against Imran Khan's government. He has extended support to them in the past. However, with the rise of the Taliban, there have been differences within the movement itself, and I believe Mohsin Dawar will distance himself from that now, and the NDM will distance itself from those parties. So we could see parties like those led by Fazul Rahman, who's a big supporter of the Taliban and has called on the Pakistani government to officially recognize the Taliban. I believe that I don't see the NDM joining an alliance with the PDM because of this issue of the positioning on the Taliban itself. And if we come back to the areas that were formerly part of Fatah, I believe that that's where, again, political parties who are looking for alliances could be looking to the NDM to influence the votes there. And here we may actually see parties like the Balochistan National Party aligning with NDM, etc. But the PPP has fallen out with the PDM as well, the Pakistani People's Party. So you may, I'll be interested to see what sort of what's put on the table to bring the NDM into an alliance.
Well, talking about Taliban, we know that, I mean, this party was launched. Its launch comes very close to the time when the Taliban took over Kabul, and the PTM is known to be highly critical of the Taliban, and it has maintained that the Pashtun communities have suffered due to Islamabad's long ties with the Taliban. Now, with Pakistan playing a key role in Afghanistan, how do you think this association is going to play out, especially amongst the Pashtuns, the association between the Pakistani administration and the Taliban, and of course the PTM on the other side?
Sure. Both the leaders of the PTM and Mohsin Dawar and other figures associated with the newly formed NDM have consistently, as you highlighted, consistently attacked both the Taliban, but also the what they describe as Pakistan's good Taliban, bad Taliban strategy. So good Taliban when they are in Afghanistan, bad Taliban when they are in Pakistan. In fact, if we actually look at Mohsin Dawar's Twitter page, we find that he's been very vocal in his opinions about the Taliban since its let's say re-emergence or consolidation of its hold in Afghanistan. But he's also been very critical of the Pakistani government's approach towards the Taliban as well. Again, coming back to where he shares, he still holds to the same views as the PTM leadership does. So on that front, we will see that clear articulation go on, and we will see that critique going on. In a broader sense of Pashtun politics, I foresee a split in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa areas on this issue of the Taliban. Fazlur Rahman, who I alluded to earlier, who's the leader of the umbrella opposition organization, the PDM, has actually called on the Pakistani government to officially recognize the Taliban government in Afghanistan. So that's representative of one view that is calling for the normalization of ties with the Taliban in Afghanistan. But there are a number of other political parties, not just the PTM and the NDM, but the Awami National Party that, as I mentioned earlier, used to rule Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province from 2008 to 2013. It has itself criticized the Taliban in the past, but also now as well. So I don't think there's going to be any uniform view among the Pashtuns about their positioning on the Taliban in Pakistan. But what is clear is there are concerns in areas like North Waziristan and South Waziristan and other areas as well about the re-emergence of the TTP, or for want of a better term, the Pakistani Taliban.
This brings me to the last question, which of course is linked to the attacks that you just talked about. Ever since the Taliban has taken over, there have been violent attacks within Pakistan as well. And as you mentioned, in Waziristan province, both north and south, and also the emergence of the Tehreek-e-Taliban. And recently, a Tehreek-e-Taliban leader spoke of implementing the Sharia law, just as it has been done in Afghanistan. What do you think would be some of the fallouts of the Taliban in Pakistan, and how would it impact the country's domestic politics?
Well, Pakistan is clearly very concerned about potential fallout of what's going on in Afghanistan. If we look at the establishment's own positioning on this issue, it is believed that they have provided a list to, or they did provide a list to the Taliban in Afghanistan of TTP figures, or the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan figures, who they wanted handed over to Pakistan. However, what's transpired is that a number of these figures who were imprisoned in Afghanistan have been released and are believed to have been able to make their way back into Pakistan. itself. So there is that concern on the part of the establishment itself. And the establishment establishment and the people of the region are fearing a return to the height of the militancy of the TTP years ago. As you mentioned, there have been attacks in South Waziristan, there have been attacks in North Waziristan and other areas as well. But there are also reports coming out that the TTP is regrouping and re-establishing itself in some parts of South Waziristan. And this is alarming not only for the PTM, etc., but also for the people there and the establishment itself. So Pakistan is very concerned about this, and they, on one hand, are trying to actually prevent this regrouping, but on the other hand, they're also trying to work to get the TTP to put down their weapons. There's some discussion going on about potential amnesty, etc. And there have been negotiations with the Taliban in Afghanistan itself. On their part, the Taliban in Afghanistan have said that the TTP is an issue for Pakistan to deal with. It's not their issue, but they have promised to not let their soil be used for terrorist activities overseas, including in Pakistan itself. But what really concerns the establishment in Pakistan is that while the Taliban in Afghanistan is openly fighting the ISIS groups like ISIS-K, they're not taking on the TTP members who are still there in Afghanistan. And as I mentioned, some of them, like you alluded to Fakir Muhammad, the former deputy chief of the TTP, statement that not only is there a need to establish his interpretation of Sharia in Pakistan, but also that he's committed to continuing the struggle in Pakistan. So this has caused concerns. Pakistan is looking to grapple with this issue. Again, we need to keep an eye out on this. But the reports coming out are that there is evidence of them regrouping in certain areas in South Waziristan and North Waziristan, and the attacks allude to the potential rise of militancy again. How extensive it would be is a question that remains to be seen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Iqbal. We will certainly keep an eye on these developments and call you in again for another podcast when there is some movement on this front. But for now, thank you for joining us at South Asia Chat.
Yeah, most welcome.
You were listening to South Asia Chat. To learn more about our work, visit us at isas.nus.edu.sg. Also follow us on our social media handles, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Thank you.